And hello there, everybody. How's it going? I was just outside. It's getting up in the low 50s now. It was down in the 40s this morning. It was teeth chattering. So I'm starting this inside. So, first thing I wanted to talk about was this 11-month-old boy that died back in 2015. And they're trying to link myocarditis, inflammation of the heart muscle, with cannabis. And they're saying that it can lead to heart attacks. And they're wrong. Cannabis does not affect the part of the brain that controls heart rate, respiration, blood pressure. It doesn't. Marijuana is found to increase cell growth in muscle that needs it. Okay? This child probably had an underlying condition. On top of the fact that his parents were both smokers and they were living in motel rooms. Okay? Like, I'm not afraid of my dog and cat getting any THC overdosed, because pets shouldn't have THC. And children should only have THC if medically needed. If it's something that they medically need, like there's even children's onset Alzheimer's, and THC is good for Alzheimer's. But I think that the kids' parents, being druggies and living in a motel room, a small enclosed area, okay, and they were puffing up, and this kid was being exposed to a lot of extra smoke. Now, if you look at my house, can you see how far that is over there? That's 40 feet away. I've got 12-foot ceilings, and I've got 2 air purifiers that run 24/7. I'm not worried. My wife doesn't get a contact high. My dogs and cat don't seem to be bothered by it at all. I give CBD treats to the dog. She loves them. Don't ya? Yes, you do. My little pet. Pena girl. So I think there are a lot of mitigating circumstances going against this child. Number one, his mom might have been a heavy partier and drinker and smoker during pregnancy, which means the child could have come out with myocarditis. I mean, this child was only 11 months old, okay? Prenatal and then postnatal exposure to cannabis in enclosed spaces could cause the child to have the paranoids. Now, see, that's what THC does. THC is what the part that makes people paranoid. And your paranoia increases your heart rate and respiration, because that's you and the amygdala. It's not the pot, and it's not your CB1 receptors for the THC. That's not how it works. And they even say that they try to link it to cannabis, and then they try not to link it to cannabis. So these 2 doctors who wrote this paper are talking out of both sides of their mouth. Like it says here, it's difficult to establish the cause and effect relationship between marijuana use and cardiovascular disease. This was a case report study published by the New York University School of Medicine last year. Later in the same case report, the doctors concluded, although uncommon, severe cardiovascular toxicity and death may develop from its consumption. Now, if that were going to happen, it'd be happening all the time. Think, this is 1 death only. And they found THC in the system. That's it, 1 death. From an 11-year-old boy who may have had 3 strikes against him already. Just think about it. I don't think it was the pot. I think it was the parents. I think the boy was in poor health, and the exposure to the THC caused him to have paranoids. See, because the paranoids aren't just paranoia. It's that feeling you get of being paranoid. Well, the children could feel that too, but they don't understand it as paranoia. It's something else to them. And that can increase heart rate, which, if he had a pre-existing condition, an increase in heart rate could cause myocarditis to kill you. So if it was really going to happen, if it's really linked, the way they try to put it together, it would be happening all the time. But it's not. And I've said before, my IQ has grown every year that I've smoked weed, starting at 8 years old. Okay, when I smoked from 8 to 18, when I joined the Army, I still smoked. Everybody was smoking back then in the 70s, even in the barracks. I scored in the top 98 percentile on the ASVAB test. So they took me aside and had me done with IQ. My IQ was up in the 120s. Well, over the next 30 years, I've routinely checked my IQ, and I've continued to smoke weed off and on all this time. And my IQ has grown and grown and grown. Okay? I was a high school dropout when I joined the Army, only because I didn't like class. Not because I'm stupid. Because I've got this high IQ. It just makes it hard for me to learn in a classroom atmosphere. I learned better on my own. So I basically got kicked out of school because of poor attendance. I just didn't go to classes. I did my homework. And where American history, we only read this much of the book, I read the whole book. I did everything. I read all assignments. I did everything. I did more. But I just had poor attendance. But when I went in the service and they saw my ASVAB score, and they were like, nobody scores that high unless they're a genius. So they had me tested. And my IQ was high. Okay? 10 to 20 years after that, my IQ was up into the 130s. After 4 years of smoking pot, this past 4 years, I'm now on my 5th card in Arizona. My IQ has jumped up to 167. Explain to me how cannabis makes you stupid. You can't. Okay? I am the case study here. I'm the guinea pig. And it's everything that's happened to me is true. I tell you the truth about myself, because when you tell the truth, you don't have to try to remember anything. Okay? So when it comes down to toxicity of cannabinoids in the body, THC should only be given to kids for special medical purposes. And they shouldn't be overexposed to the smoke. The same with your pets. CBD, there's no toxicity level. It doesn't get you high. It's non-psychoactive. It's non-addicting. That's why children can do hemp. Now, I have a link to, where is it? Lawsuit, yes. There is a lawsuit that's been going around for a while, and it's a girl. This is a, how old is she? 12-year-old girl. I'll just go over the whole thing here. This is from Denver, and this is recent. This is from 7:38 this morning, Eastern Standard Time. Pop-ups. A 12-year-old girl is spearheading a campaign to legalize medical marijuana across the whole country. Her name is Alexis Bortel, and said that she and her family had no choice but to move from their Texas home to Colorado to treat her severe epilepsy. Now her family, and a handful of others, a pro football player, and a veteran that I know of. Those three. Very disparate people, three different lives. Three different lives. They've lived different lives. And, the vet, the pro ball player, they're grown up. Now, this 12-year-old girl is suing Jeff Sessions and the Drug Enforcement Administration, as well as the Department of Justice, demanding for cannabis for the treatment of illnesses, diseases, and medical conditions. Now, Alexis says, ever since I've been on this cannabis, I have actually been seizure-free for, she goes, today it's 974 days. So we're coming up on 1,000 days where she's seizure-free. She goes, so I think that's pretty good, she told the CBS News correspondent. And it's pretty good indeed because Alexis had seizures every few days, as seen in videos taken at the direction of her doctors. Her parents said epilepsy medications didn't work, and there was even talk about brain surgery. So, this guy asked the girl, what do you call epilepsy? She goes, well, I call it my seizure monster. And this seems to tame the seizure monster. An oil made from marijuana, not hemp, taken twice a day. Her family lived in Texas where they couldn't get the oil they needed, but they could in Colorado, and where both medical and recreational are allowed. So her father made the decision to move there 3 years ago, and it was an easy one. The dad said, I would die for her. So the least I could do is uproot my life and give her a chance to the exact same freedoms and future I had. That's a good dad. And the guy says, you do it again? Dad said, twice on Sunday. Now, Alexis hopes the lawsuit will make medical marijuana legal across this country. Asked, do you think it's unfair that this medicine is not available to everybody in the U.S.? The girl said, I think it's really unfair because I feel like they're basically punishing us because we're sick. But some medical experts are not sure. One Jacqueline French is the chief scientific officer for the Epilepsy Foundation. And she goes, we really need more research to find out what's helping, what's hurting, what people should opt for this over some other options that they may have. Stalling. Quit stalling. It has been proven. There's so many cases of children, seizures being completely halted by CBD from hemp alone. And severe epilepsy, THC and CBD together, fix the problem. Why? Because they work on the brain and the immune system. Okay? Epilepsy, Dravet syndrome, all of the seizure disorders have been proven to be halted, and the after seizure pain is less because their seizure isn't as long. If they have a 10-minute seizure, their body locks up and they come out of it in a lot of pain. Well, if you can cut that seizure down to seconds, no pain or less pain, okay, that makes it more livable for the child. So Alexis has turned her epilepsy into her cause, making soap and donating the proceeds to charity. And she's even writing a book. But all she really wants to do is just be a kid. So they asked, does it make you also feel more normal in your regular life? And she goes, yes, because I can, let's say, have a sleepover at a friend's house without having a seizure. Okay, she was limited. She had to stay home. She had to be watched 24/7 by her parents for the seizures, okay? Marijuana, cannabis, has given her a life, okay? And it gives many, many other people a life. I've told you over and over again in my 200 plus hours of videos here, of which this is number 124. How many videos have I got? 118, 19, 22. No, this is number 123. 123 videos. And everything I've researched and gleaned off the internet from both pro sites, anti-sites, middle-of-the-road sites. I look at all of them, and I give you information from all of them and tell you what's what. And I tell you what's my opinion. Well, my opinion on the 11-month-old baby, I just told you. Prenatal, postnatal issues, parents living in a small closed space, smoking up, plus the kid may have gotten hold of some edibles, okay, which is really high THC, which can really affect a child because it's dose dependent on size too, okay, it's dose dependent on the size of the person and the illness. Like seizure disorders, okay? Whatever you give a kid that has a seizure disorder, you can't give that same amount to a kid that doesn't have a seizure disorder. See what I mean? The illness depends on, or makes it dose dependent. And let's see. Alexis says, well, I feel it wouldn't really matter because it's the right thing to do, and I don't think I need to be over 18 to do the right thing. So even the DEA and Justice Department have declined to comment on this. And Alexis has taken her life one day at a time, hoping that pot means that her monster seizures never come back. And that's the way it should be. Let me see what other things I've got here. Ta-da, get off there. I have something here called 11 health conditions right here for medical marijuana. I don't know the date of this article, but it still says marijuana is legal in 23 states, so I think this is from last year, and the District of Columbia. So you'd think it would have plenty of evidence about how it works for different health conditions. Does it really help with pain and cancer pain and nausea, low appetite, and glaucoma? Is it safe to use? Well, it says here, there isn't as much research on the plant's medical effects as there should be. There's plenty of research on how pot affects adolescent brains, but that's not about medical marijuana. There's surprisingly little known about how well marijuana or its cannabinoid compounds works for adults with specific medical condition. So the resulting confusion often extends to state regulations. Like in California, marijuana is approved for PTSD. In Colorado, where it's totally legal, it's not. Which means if you're going to the VA for PTSD and you P-test dirty, they'll kick you off the VA rolls and you will no longer get your free medical. And that's fucked up, okay? If the entire state is legally recreational and medical, then the VA should follow suit. No frickin' matter if it's federal, the VA in that state should recognize that people can smoke cannabis legally, and they should allow the vets to avail themselves of it, because as a vet with PTSD, I know it works. And I've told everybody my story. You've got my story in pictures and words here. Straight from the horse's mouth. How I've gone through life and how I have found that cannabis... Okay, I still take my morphine. But without cannabis, I'd have a monkey on my back. Which... during 2011, 2013, I did. I had psych meds and OxyContin, escitalopram, venlafaxine, Klonopin, OxyContin on top of that from my doctor, okay? And my psychiatrist was just throwing pills at me, free samples. I didn't have to pay shit. for these pills, but I was taking handfuls of these pills daily, and it, boom, gave me hydrocephaly. I had an attack of pressure on my brain while I was driving to the doctors to get off oxy and psych meds and get medical marijuana and morphine. That's how that happened. Okay, I blacked out. I actually got parked at the doctor's office, but I couldn't walk. I would walk a few steps and I'd sit down right on the ground. And people were milling around helping me. They got me in the doctor's office and they took me to the hospital. And I beat the driving under the influence. They didn't have blood. They took my blood without a warrant. So, but anyway, I went to the doctors there, and after that incident, me and the doctor definitely said, okay, we're going to switch over and go to morphine. And he said, I'm going to give you medical marijuana. I didn't ask for it. I didn't even know all this information I've given you over the past 4 years. I did not know any of this. All I knew was that pot made me feel good, and I knew it was good for glaucoma. But what I have found since then is amazing. And to have this drug continue to be denied to the public is just totally wrong. Because, like they say, more studies need to be made. Okay. Arizona Med Testing has put out a little chart that I've shared before. It's got all the cannabinoids listed, all the major ones, and it tells you what they're good for. These are medical tests that have been done in Arizona on these cannabinoids. And that's why they have the medical marijuana program here, because these things are facts. Marijuana tea, excellent. So, let me go over these, just the major cannabinoids and the basics of what they do. And then, from the information I give you, take it and Google search. Do your own research to follow up on mine and to make sure I'm telling you the truth. Okay, let me start right off with THC, the A number one. And this is the one that really is what's keeping pot illegal. It's because people think that the euphoria makes it like a narcotic, like heroin or opium or OxyContin or morphine. They think this, and they won't take no for an answer. Okay? And I'm sorry, many people are up on their holier than thou soapboxes saying it's the devil's weed and all this shit. It is not. This is a plant that's put here by nature, and our bodies have this endocannabinoid system of receptors in our heads and all along our immune system. Wherever our body needs cannabinoids, they take them. When you smoke or ingest weed, and those cannabinoids are in your system, like I've said before, your gallbladder says, I need some CBN, I need some CBD, I need some CBC over here. That's what your body does. Why? Because it's made. Our bodies are... Pot was here before us. So we have acclimated ourselves and become symbiotically tied to these two plants. Even more so than some foodstuffs. I mean, there's foods out there that'll kill you in a heartbeat. Bad mushroom or something, okay? There's nothing bad about pot. Unless you're getting it illegally and you don't know what's been added to it. Because there's been, like Kratom, people have been selling it, and they add tramadol, fentanyl, Klonopin, diphenhydramine, chlorpheniramine. They add these chemicals that you don't know you're getting. So that's why we need full-blown legalization, where all the states oversee the dispensaries, to make sure that everything that is being sold and marketed to medical patients has been tested and assured. And that's why I like my dispensary, Botanica. Their packaging is excellent. Hermetically sealed buds, And I've said before that some dispensaries, they sit there and they take the buds out of a jar. Every time they open the jar, they're drying those old buds out. And they're actually increasing the CBN content and decreasing the THC content by opening and closing the jar. My dispensary packs everything, boom, a quarter goes in a certain size bag, an eighth bag, and a gram bag. And they're hermetically sealed. I've got some buds that are harvested 6 months ago, and they're still squishy and nice and great, because I keep things in the food saver system on top of their packaging. So there's no air and no heat can get to my weed and spoil it. Everything is just the way it's supposed to be with each of my strains. So anyway, let me get on to this. THC. What people have to get over is the high. The THC eases pain. It is relaxing. It suppresses nerve damage pain. It reduces the risk of nerve damage. It's anti-anxiety. It suppresses muscle spasms and convulsions, controls certain cancers, eases nausea, slows inflammation, fights free radicals in the bloodstream, appetite stimulant, stimulates nerve growth and muscular cell growth, and it relieves chronic eye pressure and pain caused by glaucoma and other eye disorders. Now, all that good, and people can't get over the fact that it gives you euphoria. You have to get over that, people. Okay? Sure, some people want to smoke recreational, that's fine. I'm okay with recreational, but I'm adamant about medical. Medical is what needs to be legalized, because this is a viable medicine. And we used plants for medicines for millennia before the pharmaceutical industry became what it is today. Big pharma poisoning us with shit that just doesn't belong in our bodies. I went over that in something, but I'm not going to go over those again. Go back a couple videos. I go over Ibrance and Lantus and 2JO. A1C levels. I was curious. What are A1C levels? Okay, I've talked to a lot of diabetics. They never mentioned A1C levels. All A1C levels are is a snapshot of your past 3 months of average blood sugar per day. That's all your A1C is. Now, if you're controlling yourself well with insulin, why do you need a drug that changes your A1C levels? Okay, the insulin alone should be keeping that in line. Fact. In fact, they tell you, take 2JO or take whatever the crap is, but don't stop taking your insulin. And they say you'll see a drop in your A1C levels. Your A1C levels don't mean a damn thing. Your daily blood sugar levels is what matters. What you test at daily. With what you eat, with a proper diet. And, diabetics have to be on a regimen. You can't just eat candy bars like I do. I'm a chocoholic. Hopefully I'll never turn diabetic. But it does run in my family. But a regular diabetic can't eat candy the way I do. I just inhale that shit. Okay? They can't. They need their insulin to help the body produce its own insulin to keep the blood sugar down. I don't need that. But it's just ridiculous that nobody can get over the psychoactivity of THC, and that's all they focus on. They go, oh well, it gets you high, and then they lie about these new dabs are killing kids. No, there's only this one 11-month-old baby that they're trying to link cannabis to, but they really can't, because like I said, there's other mitigating factors. Let me go on to CBD. This controls certain cancers. That's its number one job. Pain reliever. Stimulates bone growth. Stimulates muscular growth. Stops the growth of bacteria. Suppresses muscle spasms and convulsions. Slows inflammation. Lowers your blood sugar levels. Reduces the risk of arterial obstructions. Decreases the pressure in your blood vessel walls. Looks pretty good for the heart, doesn't it? Controls epileptic and other seizure disorders. And there's a reduced risk of nerve damage and a decreased social isolation caused by the THC. And it eases nausea. That's CBD, and that's what you can get from hemp just about anywhere in this country right now. And look at all the good it does. And some states won't even let you use CBD hemp on your children. And that's why this Alexis and her family picked up and moved to Colorado. And I just think it's ridiculous for the continued prohibition. It was all based on hate, lies, propaganda, and bigotry. In 1937. And in 1970, when Timothy Leary got the Supreme Court to overturn it, then the DEA and DOJ came up with the Controlled Substances Act. And they put marijuana up there as a narcotic, something it will never be. And it will never be anything like a narcotic. Sorry, the workout kills me, but my cannabis salve. As I continue to talk here, now we're going to go over CBC, cannabichromene. This is a pain reliever, antifungal, slows inflammation, stimulates bone growth, encourages cell growth all throughout the body. All types of cells all over the body, including the heart muscle. Think, people. And it's also an antibacterial, and it assists in the contraction of blood cells, which helps your blood cells carry more oxygen. That's CBC. Now CBN. This is actually a byproduct of THC when it breaks down. It is a sleep aid. It fights free radicals in the bloodstream, gives pain control, suppresses muscle spasms and convulsions, and slows inflammation. So I've been working out with those resistance bands, and now I'm getting a lot of pain in this muscle again. Okay, let's go to the next one. THCV. This is tetrahydrocannabinol. This is an appetite suppressant, where THC is an appetite stimulant. THCV is actually an appetite suppressant. And if you listen to my other videos, it goes over why THCV and THCA and why they're all different. But it also controls obesity as appetite suppressant, and currently testing on humans for type 2 diabetes. Now, CBG, cannabigerol. This one is very simple, but very important. It stops bacterial growth, stimulates bone growth, and encourages cellular growth throughout the body. Seeing anything here that carries on through all these cannabinoids? They all improve cellular growth. So if you have problems with your heart muscle, I don't see where cannabis would be bad. I see it as it would be a boon for your heart. Now, there's something called 2-AG. This is an endocannabinoid that primarily activates the CB1 receptors, and it is thought to play a significant role in neurodegenerative diseases and brain injury. Increased levels are found in Alzheimer's victims and strokes. Now, Ananda, which is Sanskrit for bliss, anandamide. This is predominantly found in the body, present in the brain, and to a lesser degree than the 2-AG, and it's believed to be responsible for the runner's high. It improves cognitive performance, mood, pain, and it reduces deficits in energy metabolism, oxidative stress, and inflammation. Okay, that's anandamide. That's in chocolate. That's why when you eat chocolate, you get a good feeling. It's the same thing as a runner's high. You're stimulating the amygdala. So, diabetes biologics. So I put down here, A1Cs are nothing but your shot of 3 months of your blood sugar levels. You can chart that yourself. Okay? And if you're having issues with blood sugar, you need to watch your diet. You might need to change some foods over. You know, you might have to go to less starches and grains, maybe quit gluten. Okay, that's all insulin people have to do. These new drugs that are coming out have diabetic coma, amputations, tuberculosis, and death as the top side effects. Cannabis has never killed anyone except maybe this 11-month-old boy. Maybe. One death from millennia, from thousands and thousands of years of known cannabis and hemp use. That's it. So that's why I don't believe this child died from cannabis exposure alone. There had to be other mitigating factors. But, okay, I put down here, Januvia, sitagliptin. This is for your A1C levels. The side effects are pancreatitis, inflammation of the pancreas, where your insulin comes from. You're taking insulin to spur your pancreas to put out more insulin to control your blood sugar. Pancreatitis does not allow you to produce insulin to control your blood sugar. Something's not right there. Kidney dialysis is frequently needed. They have found that. Januvia. You end up on kidney dialysis. So now not only is your pancreas screwed up with the insulin, but you have blown out your kidneys and maybe your adrenal glands too, because they sit right there on top of your kidneys. Januvia also causes shortness of breath, swelling and fluid retention, fast increase in weight. It may cause heart failure. And the allergic reactions include rash, hives, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, and throat, causing difficulty swallowing and breathing. Those people taking DPP-4 inhibitors like Januvia may develop skin conditions called bullous pemphigoid. Look it up. Bullous pemphigoid. I'm not going to look into it. It's a long explanation. And it may cause low blood sugar. Okay, if you're taking insulin to keep your blood sugar down, and now just to make your A1C numbers look the way the doctors want to see them, they put you on this Januvia, which actually drops your blood sugar more. What happens when your blood sugar starts going down? You get forgetful. It's almost like when your body runs out of potassium, and you can't think straight. Okay, I've seen it happen where somebody's walking around just talking. You think they're talking in another language or in code. They think they're talking normally, but they're not, because their body's blood sugar is so low, they're not functioning properly. They're not talking that you can understand them, and they seem crazy. Low blood sugar, too much insulin, and too much of crap like Januvia may cause low blood sugar. Don't use sulfonylureas. If you need sulfonylureas, you should not be taking Januvia. It causes weakness, dizziness, confusion, irritability, hunger, fast heart rate, sweating, jittery feeling. These just happens to also be the very same side effects of Novolog, FlexPen, Apidra, Humalog, Novolin, Tresiba, Levemir, Lantus, and Toujeo. And almost all of them have a risk of developing tuberculosis. That's just one drug, Januvia, compared to all these cannabinoids over here. What do you think is better? Okay? Which one lowers your blood sugar? THCV and CBC and CBD. 3 good cannabinoids that help you control your blood sugar and will probably give you very good A1C numbers every 3 months without taking crap like Januvia, Tresiba, Lantus. Why? Why are they coming up with these drugs for something that means nothing? Your A1C levels really mean nothing. So why are they coming up with these new drugs? And why are they telling us to ask our doctor for them? Y'all know that's my one really big thing, is we're told to ask our doctors for this shit. They're preying on the hypochondriacs. The people that can go to the doctor and go, oh, I think I have lung cancer. Why? Because they told me on TV. Yes, it happens that way. Some people think that way, okay? Hypochondrianism is a disease in and of itself. People just think they have whatever disease you describe to them. You can talk them into having the symptoms, and they think they've got it. And I believe that the pharmaceutical industry is they're creating these things, the new inhalers, okay, bronchodilators. They tell you not to stop using your rescue inhaler. You know why? Because their inhaler causes you to need your rescue inhaler. The side effects are just opposite of what's supposed to be going on. So if you're taking albuterol, don't take anything else. Don't take any of these pharmaceuticals. I believe my doctor, because I've told him outright, I will not take another biologic. Okay? I went through 4 biologics, and each and every one of them made me puke blood the very first dose, the very first day. They told you, take it at night. Boom, I would wake up stabbed in the guts, and I went and puked blood. Every time. 4 drugs over 4 weeks' time. So I told my doctor, don't ever prescribe me another biologic, please. And in the past 4 years, since he gave me medical marijuana, both he and I and my wife thought it would drop my pain levels and I'd need less morphine. No, my pain levels are so high that I still need 240 milligrams of morphine a day. And here I am. Okay, I took a 60 and a 30 when I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning, not when I woke up. And I took another 30 immediate release 25 minutes ago. So it should be affecting me right now, but it doesn't. Do I seem like I'm on morphine? No. Even when I smoked pot. Everything else I had was about the baby. But I want to welcome my new people to my group. Shannon, Robert, a couple others. I've got some friends from my dispensary now. I've got 2 friends from my dispensary, Shannon and Aaron. I'm glad you guys are here. I'm glad you guys, hope you all watch my videos. I'm always looking for something new that I can help share that's about cannabis, because that's what I do. All I want to do is help get cannabis legalized. Okay, it's already medical here, and I've got it. So why do I need it? I don't need it to go recreational. I don't care if it goes recreational here. But it would give people who can't afford to see a doctor all the time. Like, I've got good insurance. I see my doctor every 3 months, $15. My meds cost a total of $50 a month, $60 instead of $3,000 is what the actual price of all my meds is. Imagine that. But let's see if I have another website to look at. Here's one. The government is lying to you again about marijuana. Now, this is from the Normal site, which is working to reform marijuana laws. Now, allegation 1, there is a serious drug problem in this country. That's an allegation. Now, the truth. America does have a serious drug problem, and our public policy needs to better address this issue with health and science-based educational programs and by providing more accessible treatment to those who are drug dependent. Unfortunately, the bulk of America's anti-drug efforts and priorities remain fixating on arresting and jailing drug consumers, particularly recreational marijuana smokers. In this sense, there's a serious drug enforcement problem in this country. Despite the notion that America's drug war focuses primarily on targeting so-called hard drugs and hard drug dealers, data compiled by the FBI reports that 46% of all drug arrests are for marijuana. It's bullshit. In 2003, the last year for which statistics are available, law enforcement arrested an estimated 755,000 people for marijuana violations. This far exceeds the total number of arrests for violent crimes of murder, manslaughter, forcible rape, robbery, and aggravated assault. Today, state and local taxpayers are spending between $5.3 and $7.7 billion annually arresting and prosecuting individuals for marijuana violations. Is that not ridiculous? The federal government alone spends an additional $4 billion per year on marijuana-related activities. These monies would far better be spent targeting violent crime and protecting national security. Okay? They need to go and stop the incoming illicit drugs and if by legalizing across the board, across the United States, we will cut the cartels off at the knee. Boom. Right now, they're still bringing in half of their load because half of the country is legal. The illegal half of the country has a want. There's customers for the cartels. That's it. Prohibition helps the cartels. Think about it. If we legalize weed across the board, the cartels might start a price war, dropping the prices, but don't smoke that shit. You don't know what's been in it or who's harvested it. Okay? You want to get your stuff from a state licensed and regulated dispensary. But since 1990, over 7.2 million Americans have been arrested on marijuana charges. 27 years, 7.2 million. That's more than the populations of Alaska, Delaware, D.C., Hawaii, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Wyoming combined. And 90% of these arrests were for simple possession, not cultivation or sale. Possession. Okay, you got pulled over, your eyes looked red, the cops get a warrant and they search your vehicle and they found a seed. Boom, you go to jail for pot. And it's bullshit. And it's costing us in the court system. Okay? Like Jeff Sessions, right now, he's leading a war on drugs on America. Instead of spending all those billions of the DOJ on illicit drug imports, he's attacking us, legal scripted patients. Okay? That makes me feel like the government does not give a shit about me. And it should do the same for everybody else. I have 7 chronic pain conditions. That's why my pain levels is so high that morphine doesn't help. Morphine brings me down. And well, it helps. Morphine brings me down from a 10 to a 6. That's if I'm in a flare. Like right now I'm in a flare, but it's a different kind of flare. It's an exhaustion flare. I had something to eat. I was going to take a shower, but a shower put me out to sleep. So I decided I'd do my video today anyway. Just unshaven, unshowered. We're coming to shower as soon as I start to upload this. But I wanted to get this across. Is that despite the fact that reported adult use of marijuana has remained relatively constant for the past 10 years, annual marijuana arrests have more than doubled since 1990. Arrests for cocaine and heroin have declined sharply during much of this period, indicating that increased enforcement of marijuana laws is being achieved at the expense of enforcing laws against the possession and trafficking of more dangerous drugs. Rather than stay this course, federal officials ought to take a page from their more successful public health campaigns discouraging teen pregnancy, drunk driving, and adolescent tobacco smoking, all of which have been significantly reduced in recent years. America did not achieve these results by banning the use of alcohol and tobacco or by targeting and arresting adults who engage in these behaviors responsibly, but through honest, fact-based public education campaigns. There is no reason why these same common sense principles and strategies should not apply to marijuana and a responsible adult marijuana use. Allegation number 2. Nationwide, no drug matches the threat posed by marijuana. This statement is pure hyperbole. By overstating marijuana's potential harms, America's policymakers and law enforcement community undermine their own credibility and ability to effectively educate the public of the legitimate harms associated with more dangerous drugs like heroin, crack cocaine, and meth. They're so intent on stopping people from getting high that they're forgetting what happened to the DARE program. Okay? Anytime I see somebody wearing a DARE t-shirt, that's old and ratty, and the writing is all faded. Why? Because they don't make the goddamn things anymore. Okay? Because DARE has not been doing what it's supposed to be doing. They're focusing on pot alone, and they're calling that an epidemic, which is the same as the bullshit opioid epidemic, which is not true. Okay? The majority of people overdosing on opiates are on illegal. They're illegally taking it. And yes, we have a few bad doctors out there. But I'll tell you what, my doctor's a good doctor. We walked my way up from oxycodone to oxymorphone to this to OxyContin. And then we stepped back and put morphine and marijuana together. And that has been a lifesaver for me. Because 5 years ago, I was off the internet. For 3 years, I was off. My Facebook page was just blank. Now I have like 7 pages and groups for chronic pain people, medical marijuana, and cannabis education, as well as a Patriot poetry homepage, blog, and a vlog, video log. So yeah, there's 8 pages of mine alone. And I'm admin on a few other pages. Voices of Reason for medical marijuana and Cannabis Spirit for medical marijuana legalization. But, getting back to this, heroin, crack, meth. In fact, almost all drugs, including those that are legal, pose greater threats to individual health and society than does marijuana, i.e., the Januvia I just went over, Lantus and 2JO and everything else. Those drugs are responsible for more deaths than cannabis ever will be. Because nobody dies from cannabis use. This 11-month-old boy 2 years ago that we're just now hearing about from 2 anti-pot doctors. Okay, it's all bullshit. So, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, approximately 46,000 people die each year from alcohol-induced deaths. This is not including motor vehicle fatalities where alcohol impairment was a contributing factor. This is just people drinking themselves to death. And I made the thing in a couple posts. Jeff Sessions says it's going to be a sorry state when pot is available at every corner grocery store. Number one, that's not going to happen. Pot will always be under state regulated dispensaries. That's the only way somebody can get pot. The only way the children will get pot is if a bad adult buys it and gives it to them. That's the only way. And that's illegal. You can't condemn the industry because of a few bad people. But, Mr. Sessions, you idiot, weediot, ignorant piece of shit, listen. Alcohol is already the deadliest drug made by man. And it is available at every goddamn street corner store that you can go. Every mom and pop store. Because alcohol's big money. $6 to $16 million for a 30-second commercial for Budweiser during the Super Bowl. Okay? Alcohol is responsible for more deaths than tobacco. But what did they stop advertising in the 70s? Tobacco. They cut tobacco off. No more commercials for Chesterfields and the dancing cigarettes. But all of a sudden we had Miller Lite, Bud Light, and just more and more beers. Okay? And we got craft breweries booming everywhere. And it's all alcohol. And it's deadly. Alcohol is a poison. I know. I poisoned myself for many years because I'm a 10th generation alkie. I watched my dad poison himself. Okay? I learned. I'm a self-controlled alcoholic. I don't drink. And I've got pot. I don't need to drink. I got pot and morphine, and it helps my pain. And you'll have to go back through my other videos if you want to hear about all my pains. But let me just say, fibromyalgia, degenerative disc disease, chronic spondylosis, spinal cord stenosis, osteoarthritis, chronic pain syndrome, PTSD. Okay, I wake up in so much pain. I wake up as a 7-8 on a 10 scale. And I take a 60 and a 30, a time release and an immediate release. That helps me get off the couch and make coffee, which I do in stages. I get up, I put the coffee, the filter, I turn on my hot pot, I come out here and I sit down. And I just veg and stare at the TV. And wait for the morphine to get in my system and wait for the water to click off. And then I go out there and I pour my coffee. Sometimes I even have to go out there in stages. I pour the coffee through those filters, the cones, pour the hot water through. I'll pour the first initial dose. I come out here and I sit down and wait for it to drain. Because I'm exhausted. And sometimes I sit down in a kitchen chair. So I can just sit down on the kitchen table and just wait until I hear my coffee stop dripping. And then I go and pour some more water on. Just make sure, I have to do that. I have to do things in stages. Like, I wasn't going to do the video today because I was working out with these. My Joe Namath name brand power bands. Because I've got to really exercise this shoulder. And that's why my shoulder muscle is killing me. But that takes a lot out of me. I do light Tai Chi that takes a lot out of me. It takes my energy away. And I have pains upon pains upon pains. And I have flares. Like my current flare is a low pain but very exhaustion. I'm just totally exhausted. I could fall asleep like that right now. I could just lay down here and say, and just fade out. And then some of my flares put me up in the 10 level of pain to where my wife can't touch me, let alone talk to me, because I'd be like, what? I'm like keyed up, and I gotta smoke a lot of weed. I've got my tincture, my THC tincture. I've got my patches. I've got my candy. I've got hash. I got quick acting stuff, and long acting edibles and stuff, and I was drinking for my pain before I got my present doctor. And when he started to give me the opiates, I made a pain agreement with him. As long as he's giving me opiates, I will not drink. I will not take anything illicit. And then after 2 years, marijuana got legalized here. And boom, 2013 happened with my blackout. And it all worked out to where he said, okay, let's try morphine and marijuana together. And I've been giving him educational tips on marijuana every time I go in. Plus, I tell him to watch my videos. I said, anything you need to learn about weed. I said, I didn't say you need. I said it would be a boon to many of your patients. I'm positive. I said, don't tell me whether you are or not. I won't ask, because that's a personal thing of, saying how many patients do you prescribe weed for. But I've told him, I says, for anything like what I have and all other diseases that I've given him a list of, I says, marijuana helps. And it does good. It does good things because of our endocannabinoid system. So, 46,000 people a year from alcohol-induced without drunk driving. This is without even drunk driving added in. These are overdoses and cirrhosis. Similarly, 440,000 premature deaths are attributed to tobacco smoking. By comparison, marijuana is non-toxic and it cannot cause death by overdose. In a large-scale population study of marijuana use and mortality published in the American Journal of Public Health, marijuana use, even long-term, showed little, if any, effect on non-AIDS mortality in men and on total mortality in women. After an exhaustive federally commissioned study at the National Academy of Sciences Institute of Medicine in 1999, examining all of marijuana's potential health risks, the authors concluded, except for the harms associated with smoking, the adverse effects of marijuana use are within the range tolerated for other medications. And it should be noted that many risks associated with marijuana and smoking may be mitigated by alternative routes of administration, such as vaping and edibles. The Institute of Medicine further added, there is no conclusive evidence that marijuana causes cancer in humans, including cancers usually related to tobacco use. A 2001 large-scale case-controlled study affirmed this, concluding that the balance of evidence does not favor the idea that marijuana, as commonly used in the community, is a major causal factor for head, neck, or lung cancer. If anything, it kills the cancers. I've told you, Rick Simpson Oil is an 18-week course where you start out with a little teardrop of cannabis oil, and you work your way up until you're taking a gram of oil a day. You will kill your cancer. Dun, dun, dun. More recently, a 2004 study published in the Journal of Cancer Research concluded that cannabis use is not associated with an increased risk of developing oral cancer, regardless of how long, how much, or how often a person has used marijuana. This is the Institute of Medicine. Numerous studies and federally commissioned reports have endorsed marijuana's relative safety compared to other drugs and recommended its decriminalization or legalization. Virtually all of these studies have concluded that the criminal classification of cannabis is disproportionate in relation both to its inherent harmfulness and to the harmfulness of other substances. Even a pair of editorials by the premier British medical journal, The Lancet, acknowledge the smoking of cannabis, even long-term, is not harmful to health. It would be reasonable to judge cannabis as less of a threat than alcohol or tobacco. Indeed, by far the greatest danger to health posed by the use of marijuana stems from a criminal arrest and/or conviction. Here's another allegation. Number 3. 60% of teenagers in treatment have a primary marijuana diagnosis. This means that the addiction to marijuana by our youth exceeds their addiction rates for alcohol, coke, heroin, meth, ecstasy, and all other drugs combined. Now, the truth. This statement is purposefully misleading. Although admissions to drug rehabilitation clinics among marijuana users have increased dramatically since the mid-90s, this rise in marijuana admissions is due to a proportional increase in the number of people arrested by law enforcement for marijuana violations and subsequently referred to drug treatment by the criminal justice system. And primarily, these are young people arrested for minor possession offenses brought before a criminal judge or drug court and ordered to rehab in lieu of jail or juvenile detention. As such, this data is in no way indicative of whether the person referred to treatment is suffering from any symptoms of dependence associated with marijuana use. Most individuals are ordered to attend supervised drug treatment simply to avoid jail time. And in fact, since 1995, the proportion of admissions from all sources other than the criminal justice system has actually declined. According to the Federal Drug and Alcohol Services Information System, DASIS, consequently, they now report that 58% of all marijuana admissions are through the criminal justice system. Referrals from schools and healthcare and drug abuse care providers comprise another 15% of all admissions. By comparison, only 38% of those admitted to treatment for alcohol and only 29% for those admitted to treatment for cocaine are referred by the criminal justice system. Allegation 4. We may never rid this country of every crack pipe or marijuana plant. However, research proves that we have made substantial success in reducing drug use in this country. Truth. In fact, marijuana enforcement has had no discernible long-term impact on marijuana availability or use. According to the National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University, teenagers reported that marijuana has surpassed tobacco and alcohol as the easiest drug to obtain. This is hardly surprising given the annual federal data compiled by the University of Michigan's Monitoring the Future project reports that an estimated 86% of 12th graders say that marijuana is fairly easy or very easy to get. And this has remained virtually unchanged since the mid-1970s, when I was in school. 1969 is when I started smoking cigarettes and pot. Despite remarkably increased marijuana penalties, enforcement, and the prevalence of anti-marijuana propaganda since that time, the percentage of adolescents experimenting with marijuana has also held steady over the long term. It has not increased like some people will tell you. Now, allegation 5. The truth is that marijuana is not harmless. This statement is correct. Marijuana isn't harmless. In fact, no substances, including those that are illegal, alcohol, tobacco. However, any risk presented by marijuana smoking falls within the ambit of choice we permit the individual in a free society. According to federal statistics, approximately 80 million Americans self-identify as having used marijuana at some point in their lives, and relatively few acknowledge having suffered significant deleterious health effects due to their use. America's public policies should reflect this reality, not deny it. Marijuana's relative risk to the user and society does not support criminal prohibition or the continued arrest of more than 750,000 Americans on marijuana charges every year. As concluded by the Canadian House of Commons in their December 2002 report recommending marijuana decriminalization, quote, the consequences of conviction for possession of a small amount of cannabis for personal use are disproportionate to the potential harm associated with the behavior. In other words, you put them in jail, they're going to come out worse. That's what happens to a lot of people that become institutionalized. Okay, so let's say you're a third-time loser. you get your third marijuana bust. They put your ass away for 20 years. And it's freaking ridiculous. And what happens is people become institutionalized. So they either commit more crimes to go back into jail where they had, heat, light, food, room, and board without paying for it. Okay, they're just paying with their time. Hold on a second. Yay, my hearing aids are ready. Actually still using my old one. But I had new ones that go over the ears, so they're not really big, thick things. It makes my ears sweat. But I had a short out in my left. It kept going off. Even when it was fully charged, I'd put it on. I was sitting here doing nothing, and all of a sudden I hear click, click, click. And it would silence. It's like, I lost my hearing over here again. So they just replaced a bunch of parts on it. Awesome. Let me get back to where I was. As a factor, this is allegation number 6. As a factor in emergency room visits, marijuana has risen 176% since 1994 and now surpasses heroin. Here's the truth. This statement is intentionally misleading as it wrongly suggests that marijuana use is a significant causal factor in an alarming number of emergency room visits. It is not. Statistics gathered by the Drug Abuse Warning Network, DAWN, do indicate an increase in the number of people mentioning marijuana during a hospital emergency room visit. This increase is hardly unique to marijuana, however, as the overall number of drug mentions has risen dramatically since the late 80s, likely due to improved federal reporting procedures. However, a marijuana mention does not mean that marijuana caused the hospital visit, or that it was a factor in leading to the ER episode. Only that the patient said that he or she had used marijuana previously. Smoked marijuana leads to changes in the brain similar to those caused by the use of cocaine and heroin. Allegations that marijuana smoking alters brain function or has long-term effects on cognition are reckless and scientifically unfounded. I told you, my IQ has risen through the years since I started smoking weed. Fact. Federally sponsored population studies conducted in Jamaica, Greece, and Costa Rica found no significant differences in brain function between long-term smokers and non-users. Similarly, a 1999 study of 1,300 volunteers published in the American Journal of Epidemiology reported no significant differences in cognitive decline between heavy users, light users, and non-users of cannabis. In other words, it doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't make you a dope. It makes you dopey when you're high, but that's what the THC euphoria does. It makes things funny. That's why you sit down with a bag of Cheetos and watch South Park, because you just want to enjoy the buzz and laugh. Now, more recently, a meta-analysis of neuropsychological studies of long-term marijuana smokers by the National Institute on Drug Abuse reaffirmed this conclusion. No negative measurable effects on the intelligence quotient. And I'm here to say that it's actually given me a boost in my intelligence quotient. Because the more I sit here and learn, the more my brain is expanding and learning and absorbing things. And pot does not make me forget. I lost 2011 and 2013. I lost them. Psych meds and OxyContin. Ever since I got pot, I've regained my memories. I'm starting to get flashes of 2011 and 2013 back. Proof. Marijuana improves cognitive function. Dun, dun, dun. More recently, researchers at Harvard Medical School performed MRI on the brains of 22 long-term cannabis users, reporting a mean of 20,000 lifetime episodes of smoking, and 26 controls, subjects with no history of cannabis use. Imaging displayed no significant differences between heavy cannabis smokers as compared to the control group of non-smokers. These findings are consistent with recent literature suggesting that cannabis use is not associated with structural changes within the brain as a whole or the hippocampus in particular. Claims specifically charging that marijuana leads to brain changes similar to those induced by heroin and cocaine are based solely on the results of a handful of animal studies that demonstrated that THC, Delta 9, the main psychoactive ingredient, can stimulate dopamine production under certain extreme conditions, and that the immediate cessation of THC via the administration of a chemical blocking agent will initiate some mild symptoms of withdrawal. These findings have little bearing on the human population because, according to the U.S. Institute of Medicine, the long half-life and slow elimination from the body of THC prevents substantial abstinence symptoms in humans. As a result, such symptoms have only been identified in rare, unique patient settings limited to adolescents in treatment for substance abuse or in clinical research trials where volunteers are administered marijuana or THC daily. One recent study involving a roadside check of reckless drivers not impaired by alcohol showed that 45% tested positive for marijuana. Now, the truth, though portrayed by politicians and police as a serious problem bordering on epidemic, actual data is sparse concerning the prevalence of motorists driving under the influence of drugs, and more importantly, what role illicit drug use plays in traffic accidents. While it is well established that alcohol increases accident risk, evidence of marijuana's culpability in on-the-road driving accidents is less understood. Although marijuana intoxication has been shown to mildly impair psychomotor skills, this impairment does not appear to be severe or long-lasting and is not typical as alcohol. And in driving simulator tests, this impairment is typically manifested by subjects decreasing their driving speed and requiring greater time to respond to emergency situations. This impairment does not appear to play a significant role in on-road traffic accidents when THC levels in a driver's blood are low and or THC is not consumed in combination with alcohol. It goes on and on and on. But I think I got my point across today. And the main point was to go over the cannabinoids some more, talk about that boy that died back in 2015 that we're just hearing about, and this. The government is lying. And facts, Harvard Medical, the Journal of American Medicine, National Institute of Drug Abuse, all stand by the fact that the government is lying. So, when Jeff Sessions and the DOJ and the DEA go hell-bent for leather trying to impair me from getting my medical marijuana that helps me have a quality of life that I did not have 9 years ago, it's bullshit. And it should not be happening. It scares people. And it makes people bad. Right now, I have a friend in, I forgot what, Pennsylvania. She's in Pennsylvania. Well, everybody there is screaming about the opioid epidemic. So what they have done is they have cut my friend off of all of her painkillers. She was getting relief with hemp oil, but she can't afford it because now she's got a son and a daughter-in-law who doesn't like her, and she tries to help her son, and she's not able to afford her hemp oil anymore. So me and Tracy got her some help. Okay? Because the states are so stupid, and there's doctors that are believing this opioid epidemic shit that's coming down from the DOJ and the DEA, not the Centers for Disease Control. They deny there's an opioid epidemic. I tend to believe them because those are doctors and scientists, not politicians with axes to grind. Think about it. Think about everything. And let me know what to think of my videos. All my new people, I hope you enjoy them. Give me topics, give me questions. I'm happy to do research. I just go right off my phone, or I write out lengthy notes. It depends on what I want to get across and what kind of points I want to get across. But the main thing is that we have this endocannabinoid system, and the hemp and the cannabis plants fit our bodies like a lock and a key. We even have opiate receptors. We're tied to the opium poppy naturally because we have the opiate specialized receptors. Okay? We're tied to these plants. We are not tied to Januvia and all these other biologics. And do you know what causes the biologics? It's DNA from animals and plants. That's what's in these new things, sitagliptin and liraglutide. They're invented and they're stumbled upon. What does this do? Oh, we don't know. Let's throw these things together and let's see how toxic it is by how many mice we can kill and what does it do to the mice that we don't kill. And it's all a batch of shit. It should not be happening. Cannabis is safer than alcohol. It will never be sold at every corner grocery store, and except in a very semi-distant future, there will be a time where we'll finally say alcohol needs to be regulated more. Cannabis can go on the shelves. And you can go into Circle K, fill up on gas, get a candy bar and a bag of Cheetos, and let me get a gram, let me get a blunt right there, you know. You know, they put the cigarettes, little individual cigarettes in little things. Do the same thing with joints in the stores. People buy alcohol at a store and they drive. How do you know they're not driving and drinking? You don't. So why not sell them a blunt over the counter? Smoking a blunt is a lot far safer than drinking alcohol while driving. I know this. Now, when I drove and smoked, I always gave myself an hour after smoking because of the buzz. Nowadays, I don't even feel a buzz. I can smoke and go right out and drive normally. But because of all my drugs and all my pain problems, I had to turn in my license. So I no longer drive. I'm dependent on my wife. But alcohol and cigarettes kill. Okay, I'm still a smoker. Yeah, I'm sorry. I won't stop. As long as I'm smoking pot and it roughs my throat out, menthols make my throat feel good, and I don't smoke 3 packs a day like I used to. Okay, I smoke 6 to 8 cigarettes a day. That's quite a drop-off. And I had COPD, asthma, and chronic bronchitis all together, and no emphysema showed. 4 months of cannabis use and I had no more use for my albuterol inhaler. I forgot to use it, and it went out of date. Now, I've had a little bit of emphysema crop up, but they say it looks like it's in remission because I'm smoking pot, and it cleans the lungs. It cleans the neurons in the brain. It improves cognitive function. It improves nerve conduction. Excuse me, burp. It does so much more good than Jeff Sessions will ever admit to. He's all he says is that it's going to increase teen use and teen overdoses and this and that and this. No, nobody fucking overdoses from pot. Nobody ever has. Snoop Dogg, I don't know how much that boy smokes today, but I know he smokes a lot. Okay? Cheech and Chong, Willie Nelson. If pot is a gateway drug, why aren't those guys dead of heroin overdoses? Why not? And why is it that I can take my morphine, yet I can pass a drunk test, a roadside sobriety test? I can pass it. I can pass it better than the cop can. I'll stand on one leg and do this. I got good balance. Okay? And that's just me personally, though. When it comes down to it, is that cannabis is safe, and it is the future of medicine in America. And hemp for industry is a have to. We have to start using hemp to replace a lot of industrial uses like wood, okay, paper production, canvas, plastics, biodiesels, paints, varnishes, soaps, shampoos, perfumes. Hemp and cannabis. Hemp roots make a salve that gets rid of psoriasis. You don't take this shit they got on TV. Don't. Okay? So you got a little psoriasis. Get over it. Take some hemp roots and make a salve and put it on there, and it'll cure it. Put some Rick Simpson oil on it. Use some of the topical cannabis salve like I've got. It'll cure your psoriasis without having you have a risk of tuberculosis. So, I've gone over some ridiculous allegations here, which is a lot more. What was the other one? The truth is that marijuana is addictive. Marijuana users have an addiction rate of about 10%, and of the 5.6 million drug users who are suffering from illegal drug dependence or abuse, 62% are dependent on or abusing marijuana. Marijuana truth. Marijuana use is not marijuana abuse. According to the U.S. Institute of Medicine's 99 report, Marijuana and Medicine, Assessing the Science Base. Millions of Americans have tried marijuana, but most are not regular users, and few marijuana users become dependent on it. In fact, less than 10% of marijuana users ever exhibit symptoms of dependence, as defined by the American Psychiatric Association's DSM-4 criteria. By comparison, 15% of alcohol users, 17% of cocaine users, and a whopping 32% of cigarette smokers statistically exhibit symptoms of drug dependence. And cannabis is at 10. There. Tell me what you'd like to hear. Give me feedback on the video. Give me pot-related questions that I can answer, research for. I'm happy to do these videos, even when I'm extremely tired I'm about to fall flat on my face now, so I gotta get this thing uploading. So, peace, love, truth, and happiness. We have to free cannabis from this prison of ignorance. Alexis and everybody else in this lawsuit against the DOJ, they gotta win. They gotta win. I know they're gonna win. It has to happen. The paradigm shift in the medical field in America can be so improved by the utilization of cannabinoids as medicines. Proven. These are proven cancer-killing medicines. Not a drug that gets you stoned and turns you into a walking zombie. The truth is out there. Look for the truth. Simple Google search or watch all of my videos. 200 plus hours. And I'm happy to do more. So, everybody take care. We'll see you in the next video.